Well, it's that time again. We're back together. We're ready for things. We're going to jump in. We're going to have some funny somethings.
Yep. Gonna slip and slide right into that.
Is that the expression you want to
keep? Can we do that over?
No, I don't think we can. Hello everybody and welcome back to Double Dip Draft Week 2 recap for the Pearl Division. I am Cabral of the Hashslinging Age of Slashers. Joining me as always...
Food, Southtown Sand Slashers.
Yeah, he's got it this time. And we're looking at some pretty hype matches, honestly. We got some really cool fights that happened this week that are fairly exciting.
I would say of the Week 2 matches, Pearl Division kind of went off. I think every match here is interesting for one reason or another. Mm-hmm. And honestly, some of the stuff that happened in Pearl this week is going to seismically affect not just their division, but I think the league as a whole. I mean, it's I cannot overstate the importance, I think, of the matches that happened in Pearl.
Yeah, I can completely agree with that. And there's also some other really cool matches that happened week 2, but you got to go check out the companion videos to find out what happened and all that stuff. Because we're here for this one with our first match of the day being Aurora of the Hoensbroek Hunters versus White Loaf of the Loafville Lanturns. And this is a pretty crazy lineup. We got a Pokemon actually going on here. Muck, as we've seen with Alola Muck, just kind of hits hard and does a lot better than I ever thought it would.
Oh yeah, Muck is really, really strong. Rillaboom looks relatively strong versus Aurora's team.
Yeah, but then there's
Landorus looks pretty strong versus Nick's team. You know, if it's like a fast like Scarf Landorus, you can U-turn all over the place. You know, Aurora gets up like early hazards. She can really put a lot of pressure on like Mega Absol and Rillaboom and stuff. And you know, it's not really like terrain counterplay, but I think that you could feasibly deal with Rillaboom's terrain if you're Aurora, but I don't know, it's interesting, right? You've got Surfetched, first impression is really scary, Bandit or Leak. You don't really want to take that.
Yep.
On like Starmie or, you know, like it gets like steel type coverage for Sylveon. It scares like Serena. Could be Scrappy, so it doesn't have to worry about getting intimidated by Landorus.
Yep.
So I think Surfetched actually gets a lot of mileage out of this one.
Absolutely. I think genuinely they both brought some really good Pokemon to fight each other with. So we'll have to see how Nick does compared to his last week if you're ready to get started.
Yeah. Well, before we jump in, I just wanted to actually say it's interesting because they've, you know, Aurora and Nick go way, way back. And despite Aurora being like really dominant, she obviously had a rough week 1, having basically just barely lost to Vincent on a pretty RNG scuffed match. Whereas Nick got completely hard-walled by Roserade. So this was win number 1 for whoever prevailed.
Yeah, definitely is. And with
let's
that
have a
being
look.
said, let's have a look, yeah. Start up Lando, which is usually the start, I feel like. Lando's always a great start.
Yep.
Although, Aurora stayed in, as this is a Scarf Jinx, as we can tell now.
They were both Scarf. Jinx outspeeds.
Really?
You know, Jinx outspeeds, it's like 317 max, Lando's 309. So just barely got it. Aurora played a little too fast and loose with it. You know, she would have been okay if it were like Sash, because she would have gotten the U-turn out. But she just, I don't know, played it a little too risky and instantly got punished for it.
Yep, and by the way, losing Infernape as well early on to Alola Marowak really sucks, because that was a great answer to quite a few of Nick's Pokemon, actually.
Yeah, Rillaboom looks pretty strong as soon as Muck takes some more damage, and maybe, I don't know, Serena could take some.
Yeah.
Alolan Marowak has honestly been doing really well, even without being, like, Trick Room focused these last 2 games.
Is that Tropius?
That's that's Tropius.
Oh my gosh.
I love Rough Skin Rocky Helmet. Gunk Shot just instantly kills this thing.
Mm-hmm.
Man, this is actually really bonkers when you watch it, because like immediately, like by turn 10, Whitelove's positioning is like so much better.
Yeah, we're going for a Calm Mind, try and get some nice like be able to take some hits from Jinx, of course. Wishing
Not
up-
Psyshock, though. Remember, Psyshock is physical defense.
Oh, that's true.
So Calm Mind is not going to help her sit on it.
Yeah. Shadowpaw just not doing enough to Rillaboom.
I'm surprised by the Shadow Ball. I think Hyper Voice would have just been a better play in general.
Probably would have. The stab would have been nice, but it is super effective against Jinx. But even then, Jinx is not super defensively bulky.
Yep.
Poison Jab, of course, coming in killing.
And that's really it. Also, this is crazy. The dry skin.
Yeah, let's go, Nick.
Turn.
Nick doing a good job with reads, by the way, and switching it appropriately in this match.
He really shaped up after week 1. I mean, he's made a handful of really solid like safe plays, but he's not afraid to make a couple of reads, get a little dirty.
Yeah, for sure.
Sticky Hold also, in case you're not aware, does not give you the damage boost on knockoff. If you're not aware, knockoff gets bonus damage when you knock an item off. If something is Sticky Hold, though, it will never get the bonus damage.
Yeah. Super Quacken, by the way, running a lefties instead of a leak
or a ban. It looks like it doesn't need it, to be honest.
Yeah.
You see it did plenty of damage.
Absolutely coming in and just sweeping the last 2 Pokemon. Even then, even if Nick lost her Quacken here, Jinx does way too much damage at that point as well.
Yeah.
So
Jinx
not
was
much
super
Aurora could
impressive.
have really done with losing Lando and Infernape really early on, which puts Aurora at an 0-2 for the start of this season.
Ridiculous.
Nick
I
getting
haven't
a
seen.
great upset.
I think last time Aurora went 0-2 was like maybe it was either season 1 or like season 3. But it's been a long time since Aurora's been 0-2.
Yeah.
And White Loaf looking way stronger after week 1, where he got really just like stuffed by Firebolt. Here, he pulls off a huge upset over Aurora. Like, that's big money for
That
Nick.
is
And it wasn't
huge.
even like an RNG thing or anything. I mean,
No.
he just kind of outplayed her.
He did.
So suddenly, all eyes on White Loaf, man. That's really exciting. Sirfetch'd and Jinx both put in a ton of work this game. I was very surprised to see it.
Yeah.
Rillaboom didn't really end up doing all that much. Mega Absol hasn't had much of a chance to shine, but man, his low-tier heroes are incredible.
Yeah, which, by the way, he did a good job. He's at a point when he was down to these 3 in Absol, and he went to Absol to potentially sack that more so against Muck and whatever was left, because he knew he had to rely on Jinx and Sirfetch'd at the end there. If he did not, he could have potentially lost this if he lost either of those 2.
Yeah, he played the sack game really well, genuinely.
Yeah, for sure. You know who else played the sack game well?
Who played the sack game well?
Why, we have Spoopman of the Heerlen Hawluchas and GTP Woody of the Schaumburg Salamences.
So what you get to introduce all of them? Is that what this is?
Yeah, that is it. Actually, you get to do the last 2. We're doing a new thing.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
I'll save my stamina for the end. Yeah, Vincent versus Woody. Nothing really to say about this except, what can be said about Vincent that hasn't already been said. His draft is ridiculous. He's a really, really strong player. This is basically, respectfully to Woody, one of those matches that's kind of just over before it begins, in my opinion. Even from a matchup perspective, like Hippowdon, really, it still has kind of a tough time breaking through Zamazenta. Obviously, Greedent has a hard time breaking through Zamazenta. Porygon can't do it. Franzon can't do it. Forretress, God forbid, can't do it. It can't be poisoned by toxic spikes because it's steel typing. Really, the only way for Woody to get through Zamazenta would be to, Trick Room up and then, sack either Hippo or Copperaja in whatever order to get, Heat Crash into Earthquake or something.
Yep. That would be the case. I did help Vincent prep for this match, by the way. He was actually a little worried about it, and I had beaten him a couple times with Woody's team. So it is possible, because Woody definitely has options to do that.
Oh, yeah, he does. I mean, he'd have to, bink the Stone Edge on Hippo once or twice or make reads. The thing is, unless you're making good reads, just between Zamazenta and Moltres, it's so hard to get anything going. And
it is.
It's so easy for Vincent to pivot around with, Zero Aura or... even Sceptile, Drapion gets the chip, Miltank can run support. Honestly, I genuinely think that this is just kind of it's too high concept for I think, a consistent game plan from Woody that doesn't involve making a lot of hard reads, or at least one or two important hard reads.
Yeah.
Whereas I think Vincent's game plan is a lot more straightforward. You kind of just hit what's in front of you.
Yeah, I definitely think that is the case. And with that said, let's go ahead and get started on this match. Starting off with Mega Sceptile, which is an interesting lead. I'm not too sure on what it was for. Probably for Hippowdon to hit it with some grass moves. Fortress coming out setting up Brox.
Yep.
By the way, original name, Hippowdon. Great. Fantastic.
Burned immediately, 10%. Shouts out. Air slash Floyd, shouts out.
Yeah, poor Woody.
You know, like Stone Edge still, I don't know if it would have killed, but it would have done quite a lot.
Yeah.
Of course, if it slacked off, it would have been in a much better shape to just let sort of sand damage chip it down. Really unfortunate.
Yeah, it's just extremely unfortunate. Going for the belly drum set without a sub.
Without trick rimming. Yeah. Or a sub, yeah.
Even at near full health, close combat just kills. So you got no defensive bulk, no stockpiles going on. Usually you have to wait for a belly drum until you get your stockpiles going.
Everything's kind of too... I mean, you could probably get the belly drum up in front of like Moltres or something, but just the positioning wasn't great.
Yeah. Again, if the trick room, knocking off, it kind of sucks. And by kind of,
I mean, the teleport is the right call, though, for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Air Balloon also, you'll notice here in a second, put in a lot of work.
Yep. Earthquake. Not killing Drapion. Such a shame.
Literally 1%. Or not even 1%, it's 1 HP.
Yeah,
like
1 HP.
You know. Very unfortunate for Woody. There's not really a ton of good counterplay at this point. You know, he's lost his Eviolite. He's hard switching in stuff that can't afford to be hard switched in. You know, even without Eviolite, you could probably tank some flamethrowers from Moltres. You know, you can teleport into, you know, your Trick Room abusers. But really, you know, as soon as like you didn't have Hippo and Copperajah at the same time, Zamazenta was pretty much a lock.
Yeah, and then he tried and toxic it. It's a steel type.
Gotta make sure to hover your mouse over the opponent Pokemon. Make sure that they can't be poisoned.
Yep. Fortress, by the way, 31% on a crit is insane, can I just say?
That's so funny. Yeah, it's redundant. It doesn't even have the +1 defense because of the close combat.
Yeah.
Yeah, Woody really only has Rapid Spin on this. And another quick and dirty 6-0 on Woody. Vincent looking real strong again right out the gate.
Yep.
2-0. But he's going to make this look like the last couple of seasons, I think. But hopefully without the rough ending.
Yeah, we'll have to definitely see. But, I mean, there's some up-and-coming people that are, I think, potentially going to be a little bit of an issue for Spookman. Not 100% sure, but you never know. Because we got someone upcoming here.
Well, let me tell you who it is, then. We have got Firebolt of the Minnesota Magikarps versus Lynn of the Pinkan Persians. This is a storied match. Do you know why?
Why?
Firebolt and Lynn are dating. They are a couple.
Oh.
You know, Firebolt recommended Lynn to the draft league. Said like, hey, you might enjoy this, and she was like, sure, let's run it. You know, Firebolt's one of my personal practice partners, and he asked me personally to help out Lynn for this fight, and that he was going to, you know, test his own mettle for team building. But, you know, Lynn came off of a pretty rough week 1, getting 6-0'd by Doodled, and Firebolt came off of a very fortunate week 1, getting a very solid 5-0 over White Loaf.
Yeah.
So genuinely, I think like the cards are in Firebolt's favor if he doesn't, you know, essentially it was a valiant thing what he did. He was like, I'm going to forego my own practice so that Lynn has a better shot. Which I think was very benevolent, very, you know, boyfriend behavior from Firebolt.
Yeah, absolutely. Which their team lineups, by the way, are pretty good overall. Alakazam sitting in the back with his spoon just being terrifying. Keldeo also sitting there with his pointy horn. And Regieleki is also quite scary for Aerodactyl.
Yeah, well, here's the funny thing about that. Aerodactyl at +1, like just a Dragon Dance, is actually one of the few things that's fast enough to actually threaten Regieleki's speed.
Interesting.
And it's only 1 turn of setup, you know, and then obviously it'll die to like an Earthquake or something.
Yeah.
Really, Aerodactyl is so scary to this whole entire draft. You know, Dual Wing Beat can eat through Focus Sash. Stone Edge obviously cooks Braviary. Earthquake for Regieleki. And Dual Wing Beat obviously will be powerful enough to cut through like Keldeo and Alakazam, and stuff like that. So after Dragon Dance, I think that Aerodactyl's so scary.
Yeah.
Plus, I mean, he has multiple backup answers for Regieleki and Gastrodon and Blissey, which will both relatively safely come in every time on Regieleki.
Yeah.
Can't really prevent screens, but won't really worry about taking damage.
Yeah, it's clear that it looks like Fireball was really concerned about Regieleki because we have quite a few Pokemon here that just
and
take
Crocodile,
hits from it.
And honestly, Roselia too. Yeah, it seems like he's got like 4 answers to Regieleki, and
Well,
then he's got
Roserade.
Aerodactyl.
That's Roserade, yeah, Roselia.
Yeah, sorry, Roserade, you're absolutely right.
Roselia's on a different team this year.
Yeah, I apologize. You're totally correct.
Yeah, speaking of being
and
correct...
let's not forget about Tapu Lele, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Where's the Dark type? This thing is really scary. Throw a Scarf on it, even though it's not outrunning like Regieleki. You have so many other answers to Regieleki that I still think that Scarf Lele just looks so threatening here.
Yeah, agreed.
So let's have a look and see how it win. I think that I like Fireball's approach from team building, but let's see how it pans out.
Starting off, Crocodile, expecting Regieleki. Earthquake is always just safe to click at this point.
So much damage. Well, here's the funny thing. This is like a pretty Fizdef Keldeo, and if Lynn ran the calc there, she would have seen that is a choice band on the Crocodile.
Yeah, that makes sense. Danger Flower coming in, getting off of Giga Drain.
Yep.
Of course, the birds.
If she'd gone for like a raw Toxic, I think it might have been better. But now you got Battle of the Birds.
Yep. Set up sub, set up taunt, prevents Lynn from setting
Fireball
up.
gets the taunt, no agility.
Nice safe Dragon Dance.
Gets
for
the
Mega
Dragon
Aerodactyl.
Dance. Gets the close combat. So this really, honestly, from here is like a lock for Firebolt if he doesn't miss Dual Wing Beat.
Oh.
But then Lynn kind of hands it back to him and says, actually, that's fine. I will return on like the, I guess, reading a switch in there.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure.
I don't think crit mattered, but another unfortunate miss.
Yeah, and then he misses again, and then Regieleki sets up a screen.
A light screen, though.
Yeah, so Lynn just, I think, not super familiar with, being in this situation. Makes some unfortunate, like, blunders for sacking Pokemon. But ultimately, it does live.
It
does live and kills it.
But Reflect would have made a nice difference for Keldeo there, I believe. I'm not 100% sure on the damage, but I think it would have made a nice difference to survive at least and kill this back.
Would have been close.
Alakazam coming back out here, just click an Energy Ball because the special attack is stupid high. Was it 130 on Alakazam? 145?
I don't know off the top of my head, but it's quite strong, especially for a Gen 1 Mon.
Yeah.
And suddenly, Firebolt reveals Psyshock, which, if you're not familiar, hits on the physical side, which Blizzy does not love.
Yep.
And also, Firebolt goes for the Toxic, forgetting about Magic Guard. So it kind of burns a turn of, I don't know, what could have been maybe like a Seismic Toss or something.
Yep.
But suddenly...
Magic Guard prevents any statuses from hurting you, by the way, if you don't know.
That's right. Magic Guard means you can only take damage from direct attacks.
Yep.
And it seems like that's all she really needed. I mean, it's kind of funny to say, like, Alakazam in Psychic Terrain is just really good. It's even good when you don't have the terrain. It's even good when your opponent's the one with the terrain.
Yeah,
that plus
high
2
speed,
Side Shock.
Plus 2 to its stupid high special attack. Its speed is insane because literally after losing Aerodactyl and Crocodile, really... Fireball cannot outspeed this thing. It's so fast.
It's interesting to see, like, when you have like a small hole and you're just like, like, this thing can't touch me. I'm Blissey, right? Like, what's it gonna do?
Yeah.
But then it has Psyshock, and it's like you have like one tiny blind spot in your team building, and then suddenly everything just like falls apart. It's crazy. It's brutal, but that's draft.
Yeah.
And Lynn shows she can hack it. She made a few blunders, but Firebolt also made a few blunders, and ultimately Lynn just kind of held it together and had the team building edge.
Yeah.
But it, big showing from Lynn. 2-0.
Absolutely.
It's her first double dip win of all time.
Huge showing for sure. And great first win. That's so exciting for Lynn. Firebolt, of course, having a 1-1 now. Lynn also having a 1-1. Nick having a 1-1. There's a lot. We'll get there for the rankings, but there's a lot of teams with 1-1. So
the funny thing about that match is, honestly, Firebolt can afford that. After beating Nick and beating him with such a high differential week 1, like taking an 0-2 loss is like, okay, sure. Like I'm 1-1. My differential's +3. It's week 2. you can do a lot worse, especially in this division where Firebolt's favored in a handful of different matchups just by seed. He pulls out like 1, maybe 2 upsets, and it's just like he's kind of got playoffs locked up, so he can still afford to take a loss to Lynn. So I don't think that should really affect Firebolt going forward too much.
Yeah, absolutely. But would you like to introduce the last match?
I would like to introduce the last match, and you'll want to sit down because this one's a bit of a doozy. We have got Mass of the Minneapolis Magnezones versus Doodled of the Jobbin Wobbuffets.
So you took a second to think about that team name there.
Sorry, he's a new player. It's hard,
Yep.
Pinkan Persians is hard.
For sure, but
I'm one man. There's a lot of team names. Listen, Cabral.
Huh?
What was the scenario leading into this match? Like, how did this look? Because this is kind of one of the more hyped matches during
Really
the
was.
the
Both of them
preseason
looking
prep.
really strong, genuinely. Mass coming a 6-0, and Doodled, I believe, also coming off a 6-0. Both of them from their first match, so both of them here looking for their first loss or their second win, depending how you look at it.
That is true.
And not only
it's
that,
kinda
their
hard
teams
to-
are strong.
Oh yeah, they both have good teams. It's really interesting because Mass is kind of a high variance player. He's gotten good upsets before. He's also taken some hard losses, especially in his earlier seasons. But right now has been looking very consistent, very strong. Doodle, however, came out the gate swinging and just absolutely decimated Lynn week 1 with a pretty grueling kind of stall match at the end of it when it was just like that Dugong versus like Marini.
Yeah, for sure. Doodle, I think, shows a lot of promise in just understanding with how a lot of this works. And he seems to just, it clicks for him when he has his moment to like think things through and start to get things, right?
Yeah, I think this was the first match, and I think this is what kind of made it exciting. For me, this is the first match where Mass is not the underdog. Like, Mass is kind of moving more into that established player archetype where he's like, I've been here, I've got some good wins, you do have to pay me some respect if you're going to fight me. Whereas Doodled has just immediately, a lot of eyes on Doodled. Getting your first match ever and having it be a 6-0 win, I don't know, man, it's kind of crazy. So this was really quite hyped on the week looking into it. And I don't know if you want to get into the controversy, but there was a little bit of spice, a little bit of extra game spice to this match. Do you want to talk about that before or after?
We'll talk about it after. I think we got to let people kind of see what happens first.
Sure. Well, if you want to talk about anything from Team Preview, feel free.
I love Vaporeon.
You do love Vaporeon?
I do love Vaporeon.
Most favorite Pokemon?
Genuinely, I think Doodle's draft is a little stronger in this. I think Doodle has a lot of just better options. Not like by a huge, large amount, but Rotom Wash puts in some good work here. Donphan's a great answer to
Morpeko,
Morpeko down there. Mandibuzz is just so tanky to take hits from anything like Gardevoir or like even type Null. Scavalier also can take a hit or two, and you have like Dragapult coming in just to sweep and clean up anything with a wide variety of special attack and physical attack moves. You really don't know what it can bring sometimes because it gets Thunderbolt, which hits a couple Pokemon pretty hard. Shadow Ball also kind of hurts on it too.
It's interesting because from Mass's perspective, unless it's like Dragon Dance, like Dragon Darts, and even then, type Null is really troublesome for Dragapult to deal with. So
it is.
Doodle has to make sure he's like chipping that down. And it's also, kind of a double-edged sword. Celesteela really wants more than 4 moves in this matchup. You know, it can deal with everything on Doodle's team, but not all at the same time. There's no, 4 move set that, consistently beats Dragapult and Clefable and Rotom and Donphan and Mandibuzz and Escavalier.
I know
you're going to have to lose some coverage somewhere.
Vaporeon gets a set like that deals with all of these.
Sure, but not Celesteela, which is interesting.
Celesteela.
So, and it's like, and that's assuming that you're even just running like 4 attack. Very commonly you'll see like Autotomized Power or Meteor Beam.
Yep.
Or you'll see, like a Leech Seed subset. Could work, but certainly, Doodled forces you to have to like proactively have answers for his threats. Just because, the nature of like Clefable plus Rotom plus Dragapult is just he's going to be in control of the pace of the match.
Yeah, for sure. So with that said, let's get started.
All right, let's jump on in.
Cabral coming out.
Just Cabral.
Yep.
Just a Pokemon.
Shouts to Pokemon. I love Doodle's nicknaming convention. It's very fun. Using Protect a Scout there, going ahead and taking a hit. Likely not running a special defense investment on Vaporeon by the looks of it.
Probably not.
Because I believe Vaporeon tanks that Volt Switch to near 20% instead of 30 with full special defense investment.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it was a good turn one from Mass because, protecting to Scout for like a potential like Trick Scarf, it shows good awareness.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he hasn't actually, properly revealed it yet, but I think if you're Mass and you're using the calculator and some common sense, you can pretty much extrapolate at this point that this is a Scarf Rotom.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then Mass gets off that Swords Dance and then takes a really horrible foul play.
Yeah, really
and Ironhead
foul
does
play
nothing.
there.
God, Mandibuzz is so strong. Why is Mandibuzz so strong,
It
man?
does really good.
Yep, gets the U-turn out.
Yep,
you
back
can
into
cover
Rotom
any hard
Wash.
switches. Yep, Rotom meets the Ice Beam like no problem.
Yep, getting that
And
trick off, and
unfortunately-
there's the Scarf. Now, Vaporeon is no longer useful.
Yeah, it sucks. Mass showed that awareness at the very beginning and then just immediately was like, no, it's fine, I'll just play it fast and lose. I think if he was paying more attention, he would have known not to let that happen, or at least to protect a Scout for it, because there's no real problem with doing that.
For sure. Using a Calm Mind here.
This is a hard call out from Doodle, by the way, to stay in there and be like, yeah, show me you have Mystical Fire. Because it would have absolutely tied to it.
Yeah, it would have.
Alright, reveals Autotomize, so it's only got a maximum of 3 moves. Seed Bomb being one of them.
Yep, Thunderbolt just
Takes
doing
a
a lot of
Thunderbolt,
damage.
chips down quite a lot.
Rotom Wash putting some good work for him.
Yep.
Fatal coming in taking a hit.
And I think since you see Seed Bomb, you should assume it's a physical set, and you should be prepared to get heavy slammed.
Yeah.
But again, it's a bit high concept. But Mandibuzz does not care about your super powerful stab physical move. At +1, it takes like 30 and kills you.
Yeah, for sure. Great call bringing in Donphan, taking Aura Wheeler, using Protect the Scout, see what it has. Earthquake, of course, which...
Yep. It's not even scouting. I mean, he's just trying to get the Hunger Switch back into a place where he likes it.
Yeah. Earthquake just doing
this
so
thing
much
still
damage.
takes so much, yeah. And Donphan's too bulky to kill in one shot.
Yep.
And there goes that one. I'm surprised. It's just so tough, man, for Mass. Mass really just got consistently muscled down this whole time.
Yeah, for sure.
It's
So
locked
I
in
want
the
to
Yep, go ahead.
pause real quick. I was going to say, so at this point now, it's 25 turns in, right?
Yep.
We just saw in the chat, they can't see in the recording currently, but on the chat on the side, the battle timer has been turned on. At this point, it's only 25 turns in. It's been
a while.
It's been a while.
It's been like 45-ish minutes of real time.
Yeah,
The
so
turns are quite slow.
The turns have been very slow. It's been a fairly long match overall. And the timer has been turned on, and I wanted to state that because we're going to start to see a shift here in the dynamic of the match.
Right, and I do want to clarify before we continue that this is a relatively new rule as of the newest season, but to kind of, not necessarily like foolproof it, but just to try to account for edge case scenarios where something like this might happen. One of our new rules as of this season was that if you needed to, after 30 minutes of real time or 20 turns, or maybe it's 20 minutes or 30 turns, it's hard for me to remember, either player can turn on the Smogon timer, which is a move timer that it's kind of similar to a chess timer, but the faster you make your moves, the more time you get to make moves in the future. And also, if you spend your full, I think it's like 3 or 4 minutes or something like that, of your timer every turn and only have like 10 seconds left, then eventually your timer gets shorter.
Yeah.
So it's essentially a way to accommodate like really long games. If you think something along the lines of like Nihilus versus Menma and Platinum,
Or me versus
was, like,
Aurora
130
in,
turns.
Season 3.
It's just like something to account for edge cases like that, so that people don't have to spend literally hours at a time, playing the match together.
Yeah.
So Mass has opted into the timer at this point, which the rule set has allowed.
Yes, for sure. And by the way, at this point as well, I would say Doodle's doing really well in this match, with Mass down to 3 Pokemon and Doodle up at 5 still.
Yeah, Mass's wall is basically it's been trick scarfed. It really can't effectively do cleric or walling things. He has a consistent answer to Morpeko in Donphan, and he has a consistent answer to Gengar in Mandibuzz.
Yeah.
So this is, in theory, locked up for Doodle.
Yeah. Vaporeon going down now. Nice Volt Switch,
Yep.
getting out something else. Excavalier. Orwell doing quite a bit of damage here.
Yep. Four wheels, base 110, stab all the time. Alternates types, it's quite good.
Yep.
This Escavalier does not have any moves that actually hit this Morpeko very hard. So
No, it
it's
does not.
kind of tanking. And Morpeko gets the Escavalier.
Yeah.
And now it's at +3 speed, so it's insanely fast. And it's got Dark-type Aura Wheel, which Doodle was not prepared for, and he sacks his Dragapult into it.
Yep.
Which is also another potential
Now it's
Gengar answer,
Electric type
depending on
Aura
the set.
Wheel, and he's not prepared for it. So I think one of the issues,
Yep.
Doodle might not know a lot of how Morpeko's typing works, or just like
Yes.
timing it. But you can see in the comments. Well, you can't, but
You can, yeah.
Doodle is.
I'd recommend not showing the
Oh,
chat.
no, I'm not.
It's pretty, it's pretty raucous chat.
Yeah.
Gengar comes in, drops 2 Shadow Balls after Doodle sacks his answer to Gengar in Mandibuzz too early. He no longer has a way to deal with it in the endgame and loses to Mass.
Yeah.
0-1.
Yeah, this was something
So-
where Doodle had to play with the Aura Wheel, and had he timed it right, because he definitely could have. Mandibuzz takes the Dark type hits, and then you have Donphan who takes the Electric hits from Morpeko.
Right.
That
So
was
let's talk about it. So I think it is pretty fair to say that had Doodle not felt pressured by the timer, because it was, the source of the long turn times was Doodle. It was
Yes.
very much, he was the one taking a really long time. Mass was like, hey, I need to go pick up my laundry. I've got schoolwork to do. Let's wrap it up. But he pulls the timer really close to the end, and Doodle has a severely negative reaction to the timer being turned on, to the point
Yes.
that even though he had a ton of turn time, if you look at the chat, he still had over several minutes of time per turn. He started clicking his moves really, really fast without checking them. He wasn't checking Aura Wheel typing. He's a new player, so it's the kind of thing that you might not
This is
necessarily
literally his second match.
be acclimated to. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he kind of just totally crumbles to the timer. It just gets in his head, affects his play very negatively, and he throws away a game that was basically, I would say, locked up.
Yeah.
And I think it's also fair to say that he would not have lost the game had the timer not been turned on.
Yep.
Conversely, Mass had places to be, but also, in fairness, he then showed back up into the call 30 minutes later and hung out for a couple more hours to watch more matches. So it's really up in the air. Mass had a right to pull the timer.
He did.
That's part of the rule set. Most certainly, you can't be mad at Mass for doing that. And I don't think his intention was to ice out Doodled or to make him play worse. I think he just wanted the game to be over faster. But at the same time, I don't know. This timer situation has rubbed a lot of people the wrong way.
Yeah, for sure. Especially just more so for me, it's Doodle's second game. He's still learning everything. He's still figuring things out. And there's a lot to take in, especially if you just don't know. There's the damage calculator, then if you don't know Pokemon typing very well, there's the type calculator. There's a lot of things to check and just know. A lot of times in Doodle's matches, we've seen him do the exclamation point DT, which if you don't know, that allows you to get any information from any moves or Pokemon, lets you know what they do. And he's been using that quite a bit in his previous match and a little bit in this one, because he's just learning things.
It is an interesting scenario, to be sure. I don't think that there is a right or wrong answer here. I think strictly by the textbook, a TO inside me says, hey, the rule exists for a reason,
Yes.
right? It's in fact to prevent situations like this from happening, where Doodle drags a game too long and then Mass misses his laundry pickup, right? That's what the timer rule is for. It's also worth considering, I don't know, it just rubbed people pretty wrong. I've kind of been back and forth on it myself. I think ultimately I land on the side of, Mass obviously did not have any malicious intent and was just taking advantage of a rule set thing to get out of the match faster. And it kind of just had a disastrous result on Doodle, who just could not prepare for the timer.
For sure.
But at the same time, Doodle's got Doodle's aware of the timer rule. I know he's watched the video several times. Mass ostensibly is aware of the rule. There was never a discussion about whether the timer, would cause issues for play or like cause a lot of panic in someone. So it's, I think there's nuance for it.
Yeah. Sure.
But I will say it, I think, has affected the social standing of Mass a little bit. I think, not to speak on behalf of the Double Dip community, but there's a little bit of antagonism there, I think.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to see going forward, how often do people pull timer? How well will Doodle be able to adapt a timer if someone pulls it again in the future? Doodle has said to me in DM, he said, like, I'm going to ask people to make sure they have a large block of time to play my matches because I really can't make my turns go any faster and I just do not perform well under the timer. Yeah. So I don't know, there's a lot of angles on it, but I do think that this is just one of those moments where, you're stress testing the rule set. Timer exists and timer gets turned on, and this might happen when the timer's on.
Yeah,
so you gotta just consider that going
in
forward.
the end, either way, Mass goes home with a 1-0 in this battle here. And with that, we get to our rankings for this division.
Yeah, let's go ahead. Why don't you read me the top 4? I'll give you the bottom 4.
Sounds good to me. Rounding at the top, we got the Heerlen Hawluchas at number 1 with the 2-0 at +8. Mass closely behind in second place with the 2-0 at +7. Doodles is still in third with a 1-1 at +5. And Firebolt in fourth place with a 1-1 at +3.
On the flip side, you've got the Loafville Lanturns in 5th place with a 1-1 at -3. You've got the Pinkan Persians, which is Lynn, in 6th place with a 1-1 at -4. You've got the the Funny Haunters, excuse me, I coughed. The Hoensbroek Haunters in 7th place at 0-2 and -4. And in the last slot, we have got Woody of the Schaumburg Salamences at 0-2 and -12.
Yeah. And it's really crazy seeing Aurora down there at the bottom. But the top half, this division, by the way, is so fascinating. I don't think there's any doubt Aurora will probably bounce her way back into the top 4 or near the top 4, if anything. But with everyone else, with how Mass and Dude have been playing, and even Lynn and Firebolt and Nick, there's a lot of shuffling, I think, for those bottom 2 spots. I think Vincent's going to keep doing well for the rest of the season. But I think 2 through 4 for playoffs is up in the air. Literally, you have half the division at a 1-1 right now.
Yeah. And again, with respect to Woody, that 0-2 -12 is going to be really tough to bounce back from, especially since you still have your hardest, in theory, your hardest opponent, Aurora, coming up this week. They're both currently at 0-2.
Yep.
So one of them is going to walk away with their first win. But I think, again, by seed, you'd expect it to be Aurora. You'll see Woody going at best, 0-3 -13. And you'll start to see Aurora, I think, scale that division, start getting those wins, Mass lost to Firebolt lost to Lynn, Nick beat Aurora's probably going to go on to beat several people. You've got Mass and Doodled who have had their own head-to-head, but now have to go on to fight other players in that sort of sphere, Doodled beat Lynn, Mass beat Doodled. It's entirely possible Firebolt beats Mass. I mean, genuinely, I think 2 through 7 can end up in any order. Yeah. Even, Vincent's not really safe yet, but I agree with you. I think going forward, he'll be very consistently not dropping any games, or at least if he drops any, it'll be 1 or 2.
Yeah.
Whereas I think everybody else, Aurora, such a good player, but having to start from that low, will inevitably, I think, scale the rankings to some degree.
Yeah.
But I don't know how high.
Yeah.
But then you've also got Nick and Firebolt and Mass and Lynn and Doodled, and they're all trading games with each other.
Yeah.
And I think you're going to end up in a disgusting web of circular win-loss and head-to-head, and I think Pearl Division is going to be the division this season to watch if you want a top 4 that changes every week.
I think that's definitely the case, and you're starting to see kind of how the divisions are playing out. Pearl is definitely the one that's going to shuffle. There's a lot of back and forth, and there will keep being back and forth, I believe, in this division. Whereas in Platinum Division, I'm not going to say who's in what rankings, but with 3 2-0s, and 3 0-2s, Platinum is lopsided, and it's fascinating.
Yeah.
What's going on?
I think Diamond actually is going to end up being the most lopsided too.
Oh, most likely, because also Diamond being 2-0 as well, and 0-2 at the bottom three, and top three. It's really interesting that those two are just kind of neck and neck for this, but you'll have to check out the other companion videos to find out the further details on who's where in those divisions.
Yeah, please do that. You can catch, it's going to be myself and Kenneth covering the Diamond Division, and you and Aurora, or
Most
maybe
likely
rotating
Aurora.
special guest for Platinum.
Most likely Aurora, but I'll probably be rotating some special guests for the Platinum Division. It is Platinum. I think is really fun overall. You got a lot of heavy hitter players, and grabbing in new people for it, I think is a lot of fun with that.
Yeah, I think it's crazy. This we say it every season, but man, this is the most brutal season of Double Dip so far, and it's only going to heat up from here. So please make sure to check out the companion videos. Thanks for sticking around. You wanna sign this off?
Okay, bye.
Okay, good sign off. Bye.